On Christmas night, I sat at a table set for 8. The shepherd's pie grew cold. The chairs stayed empty. Then my phone lit up with a text from my eldest daughter. "Stop acting like we owe you a holiday, Dad. We have real families now." I stared at those words until the screen went dark. By morning, I had pulled the final alarm. 63 missed calls followed. I answered none. Welcome, everyone. Before we dive in, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share where you are watching from in the comments. We would love to know. A quick disclaimer. This story blends fictional elements for educational and entertainment purposes. Any overlap with actual names or locations is purely by chance. But the insight it offers is something you can take with you. Let me take you back to where it started. Christmas Eve, 2024. 6:14 in the evening. I stood in the kitchen doorway of 23 Oakwood Drive, Ridgewood, New Jersey, the house I built with my own hands 30 years ago. The house where Grace and I raised 8 children. The house that should have been full of noise and laughter and life. Instead, silence pressed against every wall like smoke filling a room with no exit. The dining table stretched before me. 8 plates arranged in a wide circle. White porcelain with the thin blue rim that Grace picked out at a flea market in Cape May, the summer before Megan was born. I had polished each one that morning, set them down carefully, spacing them evenly the way Grace always insisted. Forks on the left, knives on the right. Napkins folded into neat triangles because that is how she taught me, and I never forgot. The shepherd's pie sat in the center. Golden crust browned to perfection, steam still rising from the edges where the potato met the cast iron. I had spent 4 hours on it. Grace's recipe, handwritten on a card taped to the inside of the cabinet above the stove. Ground lamb, not beef. Fresh rosemary from the garden she planted the year Patrick was born. A pinch of white pepper because she said black pepper was too harsh for a family dish. Beside it, the glazed ham I had picked up from Brennan's Butcher on Main Street. Old Tom Brennan had smiled when I ordered it. "Big family dinner, Bobby?" I had nodded. Something like that. The Irish soda bread cooled on a wire rack near the window, dense and golden with a cross scored across the top. I had baked it myself. First time without Grace standing beside me, guiding my hands, telling me I was using too much flour. The Christmas lights blinked along the window frames. Red, green, white. I had strung them up 3 days ago, climbed the ladder myself even though my knees protested and my back reminded me I was 62, not 32, but I wanted it to look right. I wanted them to see the house lit up from the driveway and feel something. Nostalgia maybe. Or guilt. I would have taken either. The clock on the wall above the fireplace ticked. 6:20, 6:30, 6:45. The front porch stayed dark. No headlights swept across the living room ceiling. No car doors slammed in the driveway. No boots stomped snow off on the welcome mat Grace had picked out that read Callahan Family, Est. 1991. I walked to the table and straightened one of the forks. It did not need straightening. I just needed something to do with my hands. Something to keep them from reaching for my phone again. I had already checked it 9 times since 5 o'clock. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. Outside, the snow came down thick and steady. It had started around 4. Light flurries that danced in the streetlight glow. Now it was heavier, coating the driveway in a clean white sheet that no tire tracks had disturbed. The weather app on my phone said 4 to 6 inches by midnight. Roads not recommended after 8. It was almost 7 now. I turned back to the table. 8 plates. 8 empty chairs. I could see them all sitting there if I closed my eyes. Megan at one end, always in charge. Always directing the conversation like a conductor with an invisible baton. Daniel beside her, quiet and calculating, cutting his food into precise squares. Sean across from him, loud, laughing, knocking over his water glass, at least once every meal. Bridget next to Sean, small and nervous, watching everyone else before she took her first bite. Ryan checking his phone under the table. Colleen complaining about something. Patrick, the baby, grinning at everyone with mashed potato on his chin. And Aaron at the far end, earbuds half in. Present in body but absent in every other way. They had filled this house once. Noise and chaos and spilled milk and arguments over the bathroom and music blasting from upstairs and doors slamming and laughter. Always laughter. The furnace clicked on. I heard the familiar hum, the rattle of the old ducts expanding. Then a sputter. Then nothing. The hum died. The vents went silent. I walked to the thermostat in the hallway. The screen blinked red. Error. I pressed reset. Waited. Nothing. The temperature read 59, and dropping. I went down to the basement. The furnace sat in the corner, old and dependable for 28 years until tonight. The pilot light was out. I tried to relight it. Click. Spark. Nothing. Click again. Dead. I climbed back upstairs. The kitchen felt colder already. I pulled my cardigan tighter and looked at the table. The shepherd's pie had stopped steaming. The ham sat there glistening and untouched like a prop in a play no one had come to see. I had spent the whole day cooking, cleaning, setting up, hoping. The photograph of Grace watched me from the mantel above the fireplace. I had taken it at Patrick's baptism. She wore the green dress that matched her eyes, her hair pulled back, her smile wide and real. She looked alive in that frame, more alive than this house felt right now. I walked to the window and pressed my forehead against the cold glass. The street was empty. Snow covered everything. The neighbor's house across the road glowed warm and golden. I could see figures moving inside. A family. Together. I stepped back. My breath had left a circle of fog on the window. It faded slowly, disappearing the same way my hope had been disappearing all evening. 1 degree at a time. I checked my phone again. 7:12. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. I set it face down on the counter. Then I picked it up again. Put it face up. Stared at the dark screen like willpower alone could make it light up with the right name, the right words. Dad, we are on our way. Be there in 20. Save me a plate. But the screen stayed dark. The house stayed cold. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard Grace's voice. Clear as day. Soft as smoke. You will know when it is time, Bobby. You will know. I did not know. Not yet. But I was starting to. The phone lit up. My heart lurched. I grabbed it so fast, I nearly knocked the salt shaker off the counter. Not a call. A text. The hope that had flared in my chest died before it fully formed. The message was from Patrick, my youngest son, 28 years old, the only one who still called me every other Sunday to ask how to fix a leaky pipe or whether to use Phillips or Flathead. I opened it. Hey, Dad. Sorry, got pulled into a thing tonight. Kyle's birthday at the pub. Couldn't say no. Next time, though. Merry Christmas. Next time. Like Christmas was a Tuesday dinner you could reschedule. I stared at the screen. Read it twice. Then set the phone down and walked back to the window. The snow was still falling. The street was still empty. Patrick had at least called earlier in the week to confirm he was coming. He had said yes. He had said he would bring Liam, my grandson, 3 years old. Blonde hair and a grin that reminded me of Grace. The phone buzzed again. Sean, 37. Hothead, bartender at a sports bar in Hoboken. His message was shorter. Can't make it tonight. Double shift. Boss needs me. I'll call you this week. He would not call. He never did. Not unless his rent was short. Another buzz. Bridget, 35. The quiet one. The one who used to sit on my lap during thunderstorms because the noise scared her. Kids are sick. Stomach bug going around. Can't risk bringing them out in this weather. Sorry, Dad. Love you. Love you. 2 words tacked on at the end like a bandage over a wound she knew she was making. My thumb hovered over the screen. I almost typed back. Almost said it was fine. Almost told her I understood. But I did not. Because I was starting to not understand at all. Ryan. 33. Financial analyst in Manhattan. The one who wore suits that cost more than my monthly pension. Work emergency. Client in Tokyo needs me on a call at 9. Can't get out of it. Rain check? Rain check. On Christmas Eve. From a son who had not visited since last Easter. And only then, because his girlfriend at the time had insisted. The phone kept buzzing. Colleen. 30. The one who posted inspirational quotes about family on social media every Sunday, but had not stepped foot in this house in 14 months. Stuck at Jenna's place. Roads look bad. Not worth the risk. Stay warm, Dad. I looked out the window at the road. A pickup truck drove past slowly. The roads were not great, but they were not impossible. Not if you wanted to get somewhere badly enough. Aaron. 26. The youngest. The one Grace used to call our little ghost because she was always disappearing into her room, her phone, her own world. Her message was 3 words. Can't tonight. Sorry. 3 words. No explanation. No excuse. Not even a convincing lie. Just the bare minimum acknowledgement that I existed, and a door closed in my face. Daniel. 40. Second oldest. The one who had not called me Dad in 3 years. He had switched to George sometime after Grace died, like losing his mother had also cost him a father. His text was clinical. Precise. Not going to make it tonight. Prior commitment. Happy holidays. Happy holidays. Not even Merry Christmas. Prior commitment. I wondered what kind of commitment took priority over your 62-year-old father sitting alone in a house that was getting colder by the minute. I picked up the phone and did something I had not done before. I opened the social media app. The one Bridget had helped me set up 2 years ago, so I could see photos of the grandchildren. I never posted anything, just looked. Tonight, I looked with purpose. Colleen's profile. Updated 47 minutes ago. A photo of 4 women in bikini tops, standing by an infinity pool. Palm trees, blue sky, cocktails with little umbrellas. The caption read, Girls Trip. Bahamas Christmas, living our best life. Posted at 7:18 in the evening, 47 minutes ago. While I was standing in my kitchen wondering if she was stuck at Jenna's place because of bad roads, I scrolled. Daniel's profile was private, but his wife Laura's was not. A photo of them at a rooftop bar in Manhattan. City lights behind them. Champagne glasses raised. NYC. Christmas Eve, with my love. Timestamp. 6:52. Prior commitment. Right. Ryan's girlfriend had tagged him in a story. A ski lodge somewhere in Vermont. Fireplace, hot chocolate, snow-covered mountains. He was smiling. Relaxed. Not on a call with Tokyo. I set the phone down. Picked it up. Set it down again. My hands were steady. They should not have been, but they were. 34 years of walking into burning buildings had taught me how to keep my hands still when everything around me was falling apart. The phone buzzed one final time. Megan. 42. My eldest. The one who used to climb into my lap when she was 4 years old and make me promise that I would never let the monsters get her. The one who called me crying at 16 when her first boyfriend broke her heart. The one who had asked me to walk her down the aisle twice at rehearsal because she wanted it to feel perfect. I opened her message. It was not an excuse. It was not a lie, dressed up as an apology. It was a declaration. Stop acting like we owe you a holiday, Dad. We have real families now. You need to accept that we are adults and stop guilt-tripping us every time we do not drop everything for you. It is exhausting. I read it once. twice, 3 times. Each word hit like a fist against my sternum. Not the kind that leaves bruises on the surface. The kind that knocks the air from your lungs and leaves you standing there gasping, wondering how something invisible could hurt that much. Guilt-tripping. That is what she thought this was. Me standing in a cold house with a table full of food I had spent all day making. Me setting 8 plates because I thought, maybe this year, just this once, they might want to be here. Not for the food, not for obligation, just because I was their father, and I was alone. I set the phone face down on the counter, stared at the kitchen wall. The paint was peeling near the ceiling. I had been meaning to fix that for months. Never got around to it. Hard to find motivation to maintain a house that no one visits. The clock ticked. 8:41. The food was cold. The house was cold. 8 plates. 8 empty chairs. 8 lies wrapped in varying degrees of effort. Some of them had not even bothered to make theirs convincing. I should have felt angry. Part of me wanted to feel angry. Anger was familiar. Anger was fuel. Anger got you through a 4-alarm blaze when your legs were ready to give out. But what I felt was not anger. It was something quieter. Something that settled into my chest like ash after a fire has burned itself out. Clarity. That is what it was. The kind of clarity that comes when you stop hoping and start seeing things exactly as they are. I looked at Grace's photograph on the mantel. Her green eyes. Her knowing smile. And I heard her voice again, steady and certain. The way she sounded that night in the hospital when she made me promise. When the time comes, Bobby, pull the alarm. Something shifted inside me. Not anger. Not even sadness. Something quieter. Something final. I pushed away from the counter and walked down the hallway. Past the living room where the Christmas tree blinked red and green into empty space. Past the family portraits lining the wall. 8 children at various ages. Gap-toothed smiles, graduation caps, wedding veils. Past the bathroom where the faucet still dripped, because I had been meaning to replace the washer for 6 months. Down to the end of the hall. The bedroom. Our bedroom. Mine now. Just mine. But still ours in every way that mattered. Grace's robe still hung on the hook behind the door. Lavender. Faded from years of washing but still soft. I had not moved it. Could not. Some mornings I walked past it and caught a trace of her perfume. Jasmine and vanilla. Faint. Almost imagined. But enough. The safe sat in the corner of the closet. A steel box the size of a small suitcase, bolted to the floor. We had bought it 20 years ago, after a break-in on Elm Street 3 blocks over. Grace had chosen the combination. Our wedding date. 06/15/91. She said she wanted something I would never forget. I never did. I knelt in front of it. My knees protested. 62 years of climbing ladders, hauling hoses, carrying people down stairwells. The cartilage was not what it used to be. I placed my hand flat against the cold metal surface and closed my eyes. And just like that, I was back in that hospital room. October 14th, 2022. Morristown Medical Center. 4th floor. Room 412. The oncology ward smelled like antiseptic and something else underneath it. Something sweeter. Something wrong. Grace lay propped against 3 pillows. The IV line ran from the bag on the pole into the back of her left hand. Her skin was thin there, almost translucent. I could see the blue veins beneath it like rivers on a map leading nowhere good. She had lost 23 pounds since August. Her collarbone jutted out sharply beneath the hospital gown. Her hair, once thick and copper red, had thinned to wisps that barely covered her scalp. But her eyes were the same. Green and sharp and missing nothing. "Bobby," she said. Her voice was quieter than it used to be, but steady. No tremor, no hesitation. Sit down. I need to talk to you about the children. I pulled the chair closer to the bed. The metal legs scraped against the linoleum. What about them? She turned her head on the pillow to face me fully. They love us. I believe that. But they have grown comfortable. Too comfortable. They call when they need money. They visit when it is convenient. They send flowers on birthdays and think that counts. Grace, they are busy. They have jobs. Families. She held up her hand. Thin fingers. The wedding ring loose on her knuckle now. I know what they have. I also know what they do not have. Gratitude. Awareness. The understanding that their father is a person, not a service. I did not respond. Because I knew she was right. I had known for a long time. I just had not wanted to say it out loud. Saying it made it real. And the real version of my children was harder to love than the version I had built in my head. After I am gone, she continued, it will get worse. You will become invisible, Bobby. They will call less, visit less, until one day you will realize you have not heard from any of them in weeks, and you will sit in this house alone wondering what you did wrong. I reached for her hand. Cold, fragile, but her grip, when she squeezed back, was stronger than I expected. Do not talk like that. You are not going anywhere. She smiled. Sad, patient, the smile of someone who had already made peace with what was coming. We both know that is not true. So listen to me. I need you to promise me something. Anything. One Christmas. After I am gone, invite them all. Do not send money. Do not send gifts. Just ask them to come home for dinner. See who shows up. Her eyes locked onto mine. Hard. Certain. And if they do not come, then you will know. And you will pull the alarm. Pull the alarm. Our phrase. From the early days when I was still a probie at Station 7 in Philadelphia, Grace used to ask me what pulling the alarm meant. I told her, it was the moment you committed. The moment you stopped watching and started acting. Once you pull it, there is no taking it back. Everyone responds. Everything changes. She used it after that. Pull the alarm on the leaky roof, Bobby. Pull the alarm on Megan's attitude. Pull the alarm when you are ready to retire. It became our shorthand for the moment of no return. What do you mean, pull the alarm? I asked. What exactly do you want me to do? She reached beneath her pillow with her free hand, pulled out a business card, cream-colored, embossed. Arthur Whitmore, Esquire Daniels and Whitmore, attorneys at law, Morristown, New Jersey. I have been working with Arthur for 2 months, she said. Everything is set up. The trust, the conditions, the videos. Videos? What videos? She squeezed my hand again. When the time comes, open the safe. Everything you need is inside. Arthur has copies. He knows what to do. Just follow the steps, Bobby. I have made it simple. Grace, I do not understand. What trust? What conditions? You will. When the time comes, you will. She pulled me closer. Her breath was warm against my ear. Promise me you will follow through. No matter how hard it feels. No matter how much you want to forgive them without making them earn it. Promise me. I looked at her. At this woman I had loved for 33 years. At the mother of my 8 children. At the person who knew me better than I knew myself and loved me anyway. At the person who was dying and spending her final months not resting, not grieving, but building something to protect me after she was gone. I promise, I said. She leaned back against the pillows. The tension in her shoulders released. Good. Because I am going to make sure you keep it. What does that mean? Her eyes closed. A small smile on her lips. You will see. Bobby, you will see. The memory released me slowly. Like smoke clearing after a fire. I opened my eyes. The bedroom was dark. Cold. The furnace still dead downstairs. My knees ached from kneeling. My hand was still flat against the safe. Grace had been gone for 23 months. The children had proven every word she said in that hospital room. The calls had grown fewer. The visits had stopped. The money kept flowing out. $14,000 a month to 8 adults who could not be bothered to drive an hour for Christmas dinner. And tonight, they had made their choice. All 8 of them. Bahamas. Manhattan. Ski lodges. Pubs. Anywhere but here. Anyone but me. I curled my fingers around the combination dial. 06. 15. 91. Our wedding day. The day everything started. And now, maybe, the day something else would begin. Ready or not? I whispered to the dark. Ready or not? The dial clicked into place. 06. 15. 91. The lock turned with a solid thunk. I pulled the handle and swung the heavy door open. The hinges groaned. I had not opened this safe in over a year. Inside, everything was organized with the kind of precision only Grace could manage. A manila folder sat on top, thick with documents, her handwriting on the tab in black marker. For Bobby, when the time comes. Beneath it, a silver flash drive sealed in a small plastic bag with a sticky note. Play only at Whitmore's office. 1 per child. 1 room per child. Below that, a sealed white envelope with my name written across the front in her blue Pilot pen. I reached for the folder first, carried it to the desk by the window. The leather chair creaked when I sat down. The desk lamp cast a warm circle of light in the cold room. Snow, still falling outside. Silence inside. The first document was titled The Grace Marie Callahan Irrevocable Trust, dated November 3rd, 2022. 3 months before she died. She had been planning this while I was bringing her soup and reading to her in the evenings. While I was pretending we had more time, she had been building this. Total trust value at time of establishment. $2,100,000. The breakdown listed beneath it in clean columns. Life insurance policy proceeds. $800,000. Personal savings. $400,000. I did not know she had saved that much separately. She always handled the finances. Investment portfolio. Vanguard. $900,000. Mutual funds and bonds accumulated over decades. $2.1 million. Grace had assembled this without telling me the full scope. She had mentioned the trust in the hospital, but not the amount. Not the details. She had just said everything is set up and I had trusted her. I turned the page. Section 3. Conditions for distribution. The language was legal but the meaning was clear. All 8 children must be physically present at 23 Oakwood Drive on December 24th, 2024, no later than 6 in the evening for a family Christmas dinner. If met, the trust distributes equally. If not, the entire amount transfers to the Philadelphia Firefighters Widows and Orphans Fund. I sat back. The chair creaked. She had given them one chance. One evening, show up, be present. That was all. And every single one of them had chosen not to. I turned another page. Section 3.2. Alternate Distribution Authority. Robert Callahan retains the right, for 7 years from the date of Grace Callahan's death, to petition the court for partial redistribution to any child who demonstrates genuine and sustained change. 7 years. Grace had given me 7 years to see who came back. Not for money. For me. Beneath the trust document, a second set of papers. Monthly allowance tracking. Grace's handwriting. Careful columns. Megan. $2,200 per month. Mortgage supplement. Daniel. $1,800. Car payment. Plus credit card. Sean. $1,500. Rent. Bridget. $1,600. Childcare. Ryan. $2,000. Student loan supplement. Colleen. 1,700. Various emergencies. Patrick. 1,400. Rent plus utilities. Aaron. 1,800. Rent plus spending money. Total monthly outflow. $14,000. Every month. For over 3 years. $168,000 a year, walking out the door into the pockets of 8 adults who could not spare one evening for Christmas dinner. Grace had tracked every dollar. She had known. She had watched it happen and built this test, knowing exactly what the answer would be. I reached back into the safe for the flash drive. Small, silver, almost weightless, but heavier than anything I had ever carried out of a burning building. I peeled off the sticky note. Play only at Whitmore's office. 1 per child. 1 room per child. 8 videos. Grace had recorded a personal message for each of them. I tried to imagine it. Her sitting in the living room while I was out getting groceries, setting up the camera, pressing record, looking into the lens and speaking to Megan. Then Daniel. Then Sean. 1 by 1. 8 times. Knowing she was dying. Knowing these might be the last words her children ever heard from her, I carried the flash drive to my laptop on the nightstand. Plugged it in. The file explorer opened. 8 folders. Megan, Daniel, Sean, Bridget, Ryan, Colleen, Patrick, Aaron. I double-clicked Megan's folder. 1 video file. I hovered the cursor. My hand was shaking. Clicked play. Grace's face filled the screen. She was in our living room. The bookshelf behind her. The lamp casting warm light across her face. She was thin, but not hospital thin. Early November, before the last decline. Her green scarf covered her hair. Her eyes were clear. Focused. "Megan," she said. "My firstborn. I need to talk to you about your father." Her voice. Clear and strong and alive. My chest cracked open. I hit pause. Could not breathe. Could not watch. These videos were not for me. They were for them. They would hear them when the time was right. I ejected the drive. Closed the laptop. Held the small silver device in my palm. This tiny weapon Grace had forged in her final weeks. Not out of anger. Out of love. The fierce, uncompromising kind that refuses to let the people it protects be destroyed by the people it created. I slipped the flash drive into my shirt pocket. Closed the safe. Spun the dial. Stood up. I did not need to watch. I trusted Grace. For 33 years I followed her, and not once did she lead me wrong. Now it was time to pull the alarm. I slept 3 hours. Maybe 4. When I opened my eyes, the bedroom was gray, with early light filtering through the frost on the window. The house was cold, the furnace still dead. My breath made small clouds in the air above the pillow. Christmas morning. No stockings. No laughter from downstairs. No smell of coffee. Because there was no one to make it but me. I got up. Dressed in layers. Made coffee on the stove because the electric kettle felt like too much effort. Drank it standing by the kitchen window watching the sun come up pale and distant over the neighbor's roof. The snow had stopped overnight. Everything was white and still. The driveway undisturbed. No tire tracks. No footprints on the porch. Just clean, untouched snow like the world had erased every path that might have led someone to my door. I pulled on my heavy coat. The one Grace bought me 3 Christmases ago. Wool. Navy blue. She said it made me look distinguished. I laced up my boots, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The cold hit me immediately. Sharp and clean. The kind of cold that wakes you up and reminds you that you are alive whether you feel like it or not. The car started on the second try. I let it warm up for 5 minutes, watching the exhaust curl into the frozen air. Then I backed out of the driveway and headed south on Oakwood toward the highway. The roads were plowed but still slick. I kept both hands on the wheel and drove slowly. No rush. The appointment was not until 9, and it was only 7:45. But I needed to move. Needed to feel the car carrying me forward. Sitting still in that house for one more minute would have broken something I could not afford to break. The drive to Morristown took 32 minutes. Normally it was 20. The highways were mostly clear, but the side streets near downtown still had patches of ice that caught the light like glass. I found parking on South Street, 2 blocks from the office. The meter was not running. Holiday. I sat in the car for a moment, staring at the building ahead. 3 stories of dark brick. A brass plaque beside the door that read Daniels and Whitmore, attorneys at law, established 1984. Grace had chosen this firm. She had met Arthur Whitmore at a charity gala 6 years ago and liked him immediately. Said he reminded her of her father. Steady, principled, the kind of man who shook your hand and you believed every word that came after. I stepped out into the cold, walked to the door, rang the bell. A camera above the entrance blinked red. The door buzzed open. Inside, the reception area was small and dim. No receptionist today. Just a hallway with framed degrees on the wall and a single light on at the end. I followed it. Arthur Whitmore stood behind his desk when I appeared in the doorway. 70 years old. White hair trimmed short. A neatly pressed shirt beneath a charcoal vest. No tie. Even lawyers dressed down on Christmas. But his eyes were sharp. Alert. Ready. Bobby. He extended his hand. I shook it. Firm grip. Familiar. Arthur. Thank you for meeting me today. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. He opened a thick brown folder that was already waiting on the surface between us. I have been expecting this call since Grace passed. Honestly, I thought it might come sooner. I sat down. The leather was cold but softened quickly. I had hoped it would not come at all. He nodded. Looked at me over the rim of his reading glasses. But it did. It did. He pulled the first document from the folder. I recognized the heading. The trust. Let us review the sequence, he said. His voice was calm, measured. The voice of someone who had guided people through difficult decisions 1,000 times before. Step 1. Freeze all accounts connected to your name that currently serve as funding sources for your children's monthly allowances. This includes the joint checking at First Federal, the supplemental savings at Chase, and the 3 credit cards issued under your name with authorized users. How long until it takes effect? He checked the paper. If you sign today, the freeze initiates at noon tomorrow. December 26th. Banks process holiday requests on a delay, but I have expedited clearance arranged, and they cannot override it? Not without your signature. Your name is primary on every account. They are authorized users, not co-owners. Legally, you are simply revoking authorization. He pulled out a second document. Step 2. Formal notification. A letter sent to all 8 children, informing them that monthly allowances have been suspended pending legal review. Short, professional. No explanation beyond the necessary. And step 3? He set a third paper in front of me. The timeline. Step 3 is the meeting. January 15th. All 8 children will be invited to this office for a formal reading of the trust conditions and viewing of the video messages. He paused. That is when everything comes to light. I looked at the 3 documents lined up in front of me. 3 pieces of paper. 3 signatures. And the life I had been living for 3 years would end. The version of me that sent money without question. The version that forgave without being asked. The version that waited by the phone hoping someone would call just to say hello. I picked up the pen. Black ink. Heavy in my hand. I thought about Grace. About her thin fingers pressing that business card into my palm. About her voice, saying pull the alarm. About 34 years of running into burning buildings because people needed saving. This was different. This was not running in. This was walking out. And somehow, that felt harder. I signed the first document. Authorization to freeze accounts. My hand was steady. I signed the second. Formal notification to beneficiaries. The pen moved without hesitation. I signed the third. Timeline of execution. The ink dried before I set the pen down. Arthur collected the papers, slipped them back into the folder, looked at me. Bobby, I have to tell you. When those accounts freeze, your phone will not stop ringing. They will call. They will threaten. They will beg. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the 8 empty chairs, the cold food, the text from Megan, the 3 years of silence, broken only by requests for money. I thought about Grace's face on that laptop screen, 3 seconds of her voice before I hit pause. I have been walking into fire for 34 years, I said. This is no different. He nodded slowly. Then, let us begin. We shook hands across the desk. His grip was firm, final, the kind of handshake that seals something permanent. I walked out into the cold. The sky was flat and gray. The air smelled like snow coming. I got in my car, sat there for a moment, hands on the wheel, eyes on nothing. By noon tomorrow, the first card would decline. And for the first time in 2 years, I would not be the one paying for their choices. At 12:07 on December 26th, Megan Callahan Porter stood at the register of a Nordstrom in Short Hills Mall. Her cart was full. A cashmere sweater, marked down 30%, 2 pairs of Italian leather boots, a handbag that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. The total came to $342.17. She swiped her card. The machine beeped, declined. I was not there to see it. But I know it happened because she told me later. Told me with fury in her voice and disbelief in her eyes, like the universe had personally betrayed her. She tried again. Same result. Pulled out the backup card, the one linked to the Chase account I funded every month. Declined. I did not know any of this in real time. I was sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee and a copy of The Old Man and the Sea that I had started 3 years ago and never finished. The house was still cold. I had called a repair company about the furnace. They said they could come on the 28th. I wore 2 sweaters and a blanket over my legs, and I read Hemingway's Old Fisherman, Pulling Against the Sea, fighting something bigger than himself because giving up was not an option. I understood that man better now than I ever had before. At 12:19, Daniel's card was declined at a Shell station on Route 17. $89. He was filling up the BMW he could not actually afford without my monthly supplement. At 12:23, Sean tried to close his tab at McFadden's Pub in Hoboken. $68. Declined. The bartender asked if he had another card. He did not. 12:31. Bridget at a Stop and Shop in Montclair. $45 in groceries. Diapers. Formula. Chicken breasts. The essentials. Declined. She told me later she had stood there staring at the machine for a full minute before the cashier asked if she wanted to try another form of payment. 12:38. Ryan. An online purchase. $1,200 for ski equipment from a retailer in Vermont. Order rejected. Payment method invalid. 12:44. Colleen. A spa in Red Bank. $89 for a massage she had booked 3 weeks ago. Card declined at the front desk. 12:51. Patrick at a diner in Jersey City. $55. Lunch with a friend. His card bounced. His friend paid. Patrick texted me 11 minutes later. 1:03. Aaron. $150 split between an Uber and a DoorDash order. Both rejected. Her apps locked her out within minutes. 8 children. 8 declined transactions. All within 46 minutes of each other. Like dominoes falling in a line I had set up months ago without knowing exactly when I would tip the first one over. My phone began to ring at 12:27. I watched the screen light up. Megan. I let it ring. It stopped. Rang again. Megan. Again. Then Daniel. Then Sean. Then a number I did not recognize that turned out to be Kevin calling from his work phone. I set the phone face down on the coffee table. Went back to Hemingway. The old man was still fighting. The marlin was still pulling. The rope was cutting into his hands, but he held on. The phone buzzed with texts. I did not look. Not yet. I let them accumulate like snow on a windshield. Layer after layer. Each one a variation of the same confusion, the same panic, the same demand. At 1:45 I picked up the phone. The screen was a wall of notifications. I scrolled through them slowly. Counting. 63 missed calls. Megan 17. Daniel 9. Sean 8. Kevin 7. Bridget 6. Patrick 5. Ryan 4. Colleen 4. Aaron 3. The texts numbered over 100. I read through them in order. Megan 12:15. Dad. My card was declined. What is going on? Fix this. Daniel 12:22. Dad. Card is not working. Call me. Sean 12:26. Yo Dad, my card got rejected at the bar. What's up? Kevin 12:39. George. I do not know what game you are playing, but freezing accounts without notice is illegal. Call me immediately, or I am contacting my lawyer. Bridget 12:44. Dad, please. I need diapers for the baby. My card is not working. Please call me. Patrick 12:58. Dad, something is wrong with the account. Are you okay? Call me when you can. Megan 105. This is not funny, Dad. People are staring at me. Fix this now. Kevin 1:22. Last warning, George. I am filing a report. Monday morning. This is financial abuse. Megan 141. Fine. Ignore us. See how that works out for you. Daniel 203. If this is some kind of punishment for Christmas, you need to grow up. I read them all. Every single one. Over 100 messages. Not one of them asked how I was. Not one said I love you. Not one said I am sorry about last night. They only wanted to know why the money had stopped. The pipeline was dry. And they were scrambling to find the valve. I set the phone down. Walked to the window. The street was quiet. A kid across the road was building a snowman with his father. They were laughing. The father lifted the boy up so he could place the carrot nose. Simple. Easy. The way it should be. I thought about what Whitmore had said. They will call. They will threaten. They will beg. He was right about the first two. The begging had not started yet. That would come later, when they realized this was not a glitch. Not a bank error. Not something that would fix itself by morning. I picked up my phone one final time, opened the group chat. All 8 children, plus Kevin. I typed slowly, carefully. Each word chosen the way you choose your footing on a burning staircase. Your mother left each of you a personal message. It will be presented at the offices of Daniels and Whitmore, 44 South Street, Morristown, on January 15th at 2 in the afternoon. Attendance is non-negotiable. All other matters will be discussed at that time. I read it once. Twice. Hit send. Set the phone face down. Walked back to the couch. Picked up Hemingway. The old man held on. And so did I. Ray Womack's office sat above the hardware store on Main Street in Welch. A narrow staircase with creaking treads led up to a door with frosted glass and gold lettering that had faded to brown over the decades. The hallway smelled like old paper and pipe, tobacco, and something else. Furniture polish, maybe. The kind of scent that accumulates in a place where serious conversations have been happening for 40 years. I had been here once before. 5 years ago, when Linda died and I needed someone to handle the will. Ray had been efficient and kind in equal measure. He charged me $800 and never rushed me when I could not stop talking about her. Now I was back. Different wife, different problem. His secretary was not in yet. 8:15 on a Monday morning. But Ray was. I could see the light under his door. I knocked twice. "Come in." He was behind his desk. 63 years old, same as me. Silver hair combed back neat, reading glasses low on his nose. A coffee mug with a West Virginia University logo sitting beside a stack of folders. He looked up, recognized me, and his expression shifted from professional pleasantry to something more alert. "Mr. Briggs." He stood, extended his hand across the desk. "It has been a while. Please, sit down." I sat in the leather chair across from him, set my folder on my knee. The folder had grown since Betty handed me those 63 pages. Now it held the pages plus my notebook plus printed screenshots of emails plus the insurance policy documents I had requested from Consolidated Life. Ray settled back in his chair, studied me the way a doctor studies a patient before asking what hurts. "What can I do for you, Walt?" "I need to protect myself," I said. "From my wife." He did not flinch, did not raise an eyebrow, just nodded once and picked up a pen. "Tell me everything." So I did, start to finish. The declined card, the insurance call, the 63 pages, $135,000 missing. The Las Vegas trips disguised as family visits, Mason's gambling debt, the life coaching charges, the text messages, the young man on my crew recruited to report on my health, and the divorce lawyer, Harmon and Associates. 5 months ago, Ray wrote steadily through all of it. His pen never paused. When I finished, the silence in the office was thick enough to press against my chest. He set his pen down, removed his glasses, pinched the bridge of his nose. "Walt," he said carefully, "what you are describing involves multiple potential criminal charges. The insurance increase without your consent is fraud, depending on the amount and the state laws. We are looking at a felony. The unauthorized access to your account, the pattern of concealment, the recruitment of a third party to monitor your health condition, all of this paints a picture that any prosecutor would find very interesting." I nodded. "I am not interested in sending her to prison. What are you interested in?" "Keeping what is mine. My house, my pension, my savings, whatever is left of them, and making sure she cannot touch me after this is over." Ray leaned back, tapped his pen against the desk. "All right. Here is what I recommend. First, an irrevocable trust. We move your house, your pension benefits, and your savings account into a trust structure that cannot be altered or revoked once it is signed. That means no one, not Patricia, not her lawyer, not a divorce court judge, can access those assets. They exist behind a legal wall." I listened. The words sounded like bolts being driven into a roof. Structural. Permanent. Second, we cancel that life insurance policy immediately. You did not authorize the increase. That gives us grounds to void the entire policy. She gets zero. Not the $50,000 original. Not the $750. Nothing. Third, he continued, we file for divorce. On your terms. With your timeline. Given the evidence of financial fraud and the unauthorized insurance increase, you have overwhelming grounds. No-fault states still consider dissipation of marital assets, and $135,000 is not a gray area. He paused, looked at me directly. But here is the important part, Walt. We do all of this simultaneously. The trust is signed. The insurance is canceled. The divorce is filed. All on the same day, or within the same week. By the time she knows what happened, every door is already closed. She cannot move money because the accounts are protected. She cannot claim the house because it is in the trust. She cannot wait for you to die. Because the policy is cancelled. She has nothing. How long? I asked. 2 weeks to draft the trust documents and get them reviewed. The insurance cancellation is a phone call once we have documentation of the fraud. The divorce petition takes 3 days to prepare. Total. 2 weeks. Maybe less if I push it. Can you push it? He smiled. Thin. Professional. The smile of a man who had seen this kind of thing before and took personal satisfaction in the legal architecture of protection. For a case like this, yes. I can push it. I pulled out my wallet. What do you need from me today? A retainer. $2,000. And copies of everything in that folder. I will need the insurance policy, the bank statements, screenshots of the emails, and a written statement from the young man on your crew. Kyle. Was it? Kyle Dawson. He will cooperate. Good. Ray stood, extended his hand again. Walt, I want to be clear about something. What your wife has done is not just wrong. It is criminal. The insurance fraud alone carries 2 to 5 years in this state. If you ever change your mind about prosecution, you have enough evidence to bury her. I shook his hand. I do not want to bury her. I just want her out of my life. He nodded. Understood. But keep the evidence regardless. You never know when you might need leverage. I walked down those creaking stairs and out onto Main Street. The morning air was cold and sharp. December now. The hardware store below Ray's office had Christmas lights in the window, red and green blinking against the gray morning. Across the street, Mabel's diner was filling up with the breakfast crowd. Normal people living normal lives. I drove to the mine, clocked in, rode the cage down. The folder was locked in my glove compartment now. The retainer check was in Ray's desk. The clock was running. 2 weeks, 14 days. I had already survived 14 days of silence. I could survive 14 more. Because a man who rushes a detonation before the charges are set properly does not bring down the wall. He brings down the ceiling. On himself. I would not rush, I would wait. And when every bolt was in place, every charge wired, every exit route mapped, then and only then would I light the fuse. Patricia would never see it coming. The same way I never saw $135,000 leaving my account. The same way I never saw a $750,000 bet placed on my death. Fair is fair. The conference room at Daniels and Whitmore smelled of old leather and new fear. I arrived 15 minutes early. Arthur was already there, arranging folders at the head of the long mahogany table. He looked up when I came in. Nodded once. Gestured to the seat on his left. They will be here soon, he said. I sat down. Smoothed the front of my jacket. The navy suit Grace had bought me for our 32nd anniversary. The last gift she ever gave me. I had not worn it since her funeral. It still fit. Barely. The clock on the wall read 1:53. The room was quiet. Dark wood paneling. Frame degrees. A window overlooking South Street where traffic moved slowly through the January gray. Everything felt formal. Final. Like a courtroom before the verdict. At 1:58, the door opened. Megan came first. She always came first. She walked in like she owned the room. Coat buttoned, jaw set, eyes scanning for threats. Kevin followed 2 steps behind. Taller. Broader. His face arranged into an expression meant to intimidate. Then Daniel. Alone. Hands in his pockets. Expression flat and unreadable. Sean after him, fidgeting with his jacket zipper. Bridget next. Small and pale, looking at the floor. Ryan in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my first car. Colleen with her arms crossed before she even sat down. Patrick, the youngest, who nodded at me once before taking his seat. And Erin, last, earbuds hanging around her neck, already checked out. 8 children. 1 son-in-law. All of them on the right side of the table. Me. And Arthur. On the left. The distance between us felt wider than the mahogany. No one said hello. No one asked how I was. Megan sat down and immediately spoke. Can we get this over with? Some of us have things to do. Arthur waited until everyone was settled. Then he opened the thick brown folder in front of him and adjusted his reading glasses. His movements were unhurried, deliberate, the movements of a man who understood that silence was a tool. Thank you all for coming, he said. His voice was calm, measured. I know the past 3 weeks have been difficult. We are here today to discuss the Grace Marie Callahan Irrevocable Trust. Kevin leaned forward. Finally. How much are we talking about? Arthur looked at him. His expression did not change. I will get to that. But first, the terms. He pulled out the trust document. 6 pages. Dense, with legal language. He began to read. The Grace Marie Callahan Irrevocable Trust was established on November 3, 2022, approximately 2 months before Mrs. Callahan's passing. The trust was funded with the following assets. He paused, looked up, made sure every pair of eyes was on him. Life insurance proceeds, $800,000. Personal savings, $400,000. Investment portfolio, $900,000. Another pause. Longer. Total trust value, $2,100,000. The room did not move, did not breathe. For 3 full seconds, nobody made a sound. Then Kevin broke the silence. His voice loud, eager. 2.1 million. Split 8 ways. That is over $260,000 each. Arthur did not look at him. Kept his eyes on the document. Not quite. Kevin's smile faltered. What do you mean, not quite? The trust includes specific conditions for distribution. Arthur turned a page. Section 3, subsection 1. Conditions precedent. He read slowly, clearly, every word landing like a stone dropped into still water. In order for each beneficiary to receive their share of the trust, the following condition must be met. All 8 children of Robert and Grace Callahan must be physically present at the family residence, 23 Oakwood Drive, Ridgewood, New Jersey, on December 24, 2024. No later than 6 in the evening, for the purpose of sharing a family Christmas dinner. He looked up, met each pair of eyes. If this condition is not met, the entire trust amount shall be transferred to the Philadelphia Firefighters Widows and Orphans Fund. Silence. Not the polite kind, the crushing kind. The kind that pushes against your chest and makes it hard to inhale. Megan spoke first. Her voice cracked on the first word. Wait. What? Daniel leaned forward. All of us? Every single one? Yes, Arthur said. Sean's face had gone white. So because none of us showed up, nobody gets anything? Correct. Kevin shot to his feet. The chair scraped against the hardwood. This is insane. You are telling me we lost $2 million because of one dinner? Arthur looked at him. Calm. Steady. Unflinching. You lost $2 million because not one of you showed up. Megan turned to me. Her face was red, her hands gripping the edge of the table. You knew. You knew about this, and you did not tell us. You could have warned us. We would have come. I met her eyes. Your mother made the rules. I followed them. Kevin pointed at me across the table. This will not stand. We will contest this. No judge is going to allow a dead woman to manipulate her family from beyond the grave. Arthur closed the folder, set his hands flat on the table. Mr. Porter, the trust has been irrevocable since its creation. Mrs. Callahan was of sound mind when she signed it. 3 witnesses, 2 notaries, a full psychological evaluation confirming mental competency. All documentation is available for your review. He paused. You may attempt to contest it. You will not succeed. Daniel's voice was flat, cold. So the money is gone. The money will be transferred to the Philadelphia Firefighters' Widows and Orphans Fund on February 1st, Arthur said. Per the terms of the trust. Colleen stood up, her voice high and tight. This is not fair. We did not know there was a test. Arthur looked at her. Your mother did not consider it a test. She considered it an invitation. You declined. The room was fracturing. I could feel it. Voices overlapping. Kevin arguing with Arthur. Megan glaring at me. Daniel already pulling out his phone, probably searching for lawyers. Sean with his head in his hands. Bridget crying silently. Patrick staring at the table. Ryan calculating. Erin staring out the window like she wanted to be anywhere else. Then Arthur spoke again. 6 words. Quiet but clear enough to cut through everything. There is one more thing. Everyone stopped. Megan's hand was on her purse strap. Kevin had half turned toward the door. Daniel's phone was mid-dial. Arthur reached beneath the table and placed 8 sealed envelopes in a row across the surface. White, cream-colored paper, each one with a name written across the front in handwriting every person in that room recognized immediately. Grace's handwriting. Your mother left something else, Arthur said. Something personal. For each of you. 8 envelopes on the table. 8 names in Grace's handwriting. Nobody moved to pick them up. They just stared. Like the envelopes might open themselves. Like the name on the front might rearrange into something less real. Arthur let the silence hold for a moment. Then he spoke. Each envelope contains a USB drive. On each drive is a video message recorded by your mother in November of 2022, approximately 6 weeks before her death. Each message is personal, individual, intended only for the person whose name is on the envelope. Megan's voice was tight, controlled. What kind of video? Arthur looked at her. A message. From your mother. To you. Recorded while she was still well enough to sit upright and speak clearly. She asked that each of you watch your message privately, alone, without the others present. Kevin stepped forward. I am not watching anything. This is manipulation. Arthur did not look at him. Mr. Porter, you are not a beneficiary of this trust. You are welcome to wait in the reception area. These messages are for Mrs. Callahan's children, not their spouses. Kevin's face went dark. He looked at Megan. She did not look back. For the first time since she walked in, she was not performing. She was staring at the envelope with her name on it, at her mother's handwriting, at the curve of the M, the way Grace always wrote it with a little flourish at the start. Arthur stood. If you will follow me. He gestured toward the hallway. We have prepared 8 rooms, each with a laptop. You will have privacy. Take as long as you need. Nobody moved for a moment. Then Bridget reached forward. Her hand was trembling. She picked up her envelope, held it against her chest like it was something fragile, something precious. Patrick picked up his next. Then Sean. Then Rachel. One by one they reached for their names. Daniel grabbed his quickly. Businesslike. Colleen picked hers up with 2 fingers, like it might burn her. Ryan took his without looking at it. Erin was last. She hesitated, then picked it up and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Megan was the only one who did not move. She stared at her envelope on the table. Kevin leaned down and whispered something in her ear. She shook her head, reached forward, picked it up. Arthur led them down the hall. I stayed in the conference room, listened to their footsteps. 8 pairs of feet on old hardwood. Doors opening, doors closing. Then, silence. Arthur returned a few minutes later. Sat down across from me. Folded his hands. Are you all right? He asked. I nodded. Did not trust my voice yet. She recorded those in the first week of November, he said. Came to the office on a Tuesday afternoon while you were at your physical therapy appointment. Set up a camera in my conference room. Recorded all 8 in one sitting. Took her 4 hours. She was exhausted by the end, but she refused to stop until she finished the last one. I looked at him. 4 hours. She had notes for each one, written on index cards. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. He paused. I have never seen anything like it, Bobby. In 40 years of practice, a dying woman sitting in that chair, looking into a camera, and speaking to her children with that kind of clarity, that kind of love, that kind of anger. I stared at the table, the empty space where the envelopes had been. Did she cry? I asked. Once, he said. During Bridget's, the silence stretched between us. Through the walls, through the closed doors down the hall, I could hear it starting. A muffled sound. Then another. Crying. Not loud, not dramatic. The kind of crying that happens when something breaks inside you that you did not know was holding everything together. I could not tell whose tears were whose. The sounds blurred together, muted by walls and doors and distance. But they were there. All of them. Somewhere in this building, my 8 children were sitting alone in small rooms, watching their dead mother speak to them, hearing her voice for the first time in 2 years, seeing her face, alive, present, looking directly at them and saying the things she never said while she had the chance, or maybe the things she said 100 times that they never bothered to hear. I sat there, hands folded on the table, staring at the wood grain, listening to the sounds of something collapsing. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. The crying did not stop. It shifted, moved. One room would go quiet and another would start. Waves. Like the ocean I had never seen, but Grace had always wanted to show me. Arthur brought me coffee. I did not drink it. Just held the warm cup in my hands and waited. At 2:47, a door opened. Footsteps in the hall. I looked up. Megan appeared in the doorway. Her face was swollen, red. Mascara streaked down both cheeks in dark lines. Her lips were pressed together, so hard, they had gone white. She stood there, gripping the door frame with one hand and the USB drive in the other. She looked at me. I looked at her. For 42 years, my eldest daughter had always had something to say, always had an opinion, a rebuttal, a correction, a demand. She had come out of the womb crying louder than any of the others, and she had never stopped since. But now, standing in that doorway, with her mother's voice still ringing in her ears, she had nothing. Not a word, not a sound. Her mouth opened slightly, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. She stood there. And for the first time in my life, I saw Megan Callahan completely and utterly silent. One by one they emerged. Red eyes, shaking hands, silence that weighed more than anything they could have said. Bridget came out second. She was not walking straight. Her hand trailed along the wall like she needed it to stay upright. Her face was blotched red and white. She made it 3 steps past the doorway before her knees buckled. She slid down the wall and sat on the floor, hugging her envelope to her chest, crying so hard no sound came out. Just her shoulders shaking, her mouth open, her eyes squeezed shut. Sean came out third. He did not cry. His jaw was locked tight, his fists clenched at his sides. He walked past Megan, past Bridget on the floor, and stopped at the end of the hallway, where a framed landscape hung on the wall. He stood there for a moment. Then he drove his fist into the plaster beside the frame. The wall cracked. His knuckles split. He did not make a sound, just stood there, with his hand in the hole he had made, breathing through his teeth. Patrick came out quietly. His eyes were red but dry. He looked younger than 28. He looked like the boy who used to sit on my shoulders at 4th of July parades. He saw Bridget on the floor and crouched beside her, put his hand on her back, did not say anything, just stayed there. Ryan emerged with his phone already in his hand, typing. His face was a mask. Whatever he felt, He had locked it away behind the same professional blankness he wore to client meetings. He walked past everyone without acknowledgement and stood by the window at the end of the hall, texting someone. Colleen came out angry. I could see it in the set of her shoulders. The way she gripped the USB drive, like she wanted to snap it in half. She looked at me, opened her mouth, closed it, walked to the conference room, and sat down heavily in her chair. Erin was nearly invisible. She slipped out of her room like smoke, earbuds already back in, and took her seat without looking at anyone. Her face was unreadable. Whatever Grace had said to her, she had locked it away somewhere deep. Daniel was last. He stepped out of his room, slipped the USB into his coat pocket, buttoned his jacket, and walked straight past all of us, toward the front door. He did not stop, did not look at me, did not look at his siblings, just walked like a man leaving a building that was on fire, and he had decided not to help anyone else get out. The front door opened, closed. He was gone. Kevin appeared from the reception area where Arthur had directed him to wait. He looked at Megan's face, at Bridget on the floor, at the hole Sean had punched in the wall. His expression shifted from confusion to anger in less than a second. What the hell did she say to them? He pointed at Arthur. This is psychological abuse. From beyond the grave. You cannot do this to people. Arthur did not respond. He simply stood in the hallway, hands folded, waiting for the storm to pass. I stayed in my chair in the conference room, watching through the open door, waiting. I did not know exactly what Grace had said in those videos. She had not told me, had not shown me scripts or notes, but I could guess. I knew my wife. I knew the way she spoke when she meant business. Direct, unflinching, surgical. Later, weeks later, months later, 3 of them would tell me pieces of what they heard. Not everything, just fragments. Enough for me to understand what Grace had done. Megan's video. She told me about it in October. Sitting on a bench at the Cape May lighthouse, tears running down her face. Mom said she counted. Megan whispered. She said she counted 847 days between calls that were not about money. 847 days where I did not call just to ask how Dad was doing. And then she said. She stopped, swallowed. She said I used to be a little girl who rescued stray cats from the rain. She asked me what happened to that girl. 847 days. Grace had counted. Of course she had. Bridget's video. She mentioned it during her first visit in March. Sitting in my kitchen in Cape May, hands wrapped around a coffee mug. Mom said she knew I was afraid of Megan, Bridget told me, her voice barely above a whisper. She said she watched me stay silent every time Megan said something cruel about you. Every time the others made jokes about not visiting. She said. Bridget paused, took a breath. She said silence makes you complicit. She said I was choosing my sister's approval over my father's dignity. Patrick's video. He told me in July, sitting on my porch with his son Liam asleep in his lap. She told me I was the baby, Patrick said, his voice rough. She said the others told me not to care. Told me you were fine. Told me I did not need to call. And she said she saw my face at her funeral. She said I was the only one who looked back at you when we walked away from the grave. She said. He cleared his throat. She said, I was not a child anymore, and it was time to stop letting my brothers and sisters think for me. Those were the fragments I gathered over time. 3 videos out of 8. The other 5, Daniel's, Sean's, Ryan's, Colleen's, Erin's, I never heard. Those children never came back to tell me. Whatever Grace said to them, they carried it alone. Or buried it. Or deleted it. I would never know. Back in the hallway, January 15th, 2:49 in the afternoon. Bridget still on the floor. Sean pulling his bloody hand from the wall. Megan standing in the doorway like a statue carved from grief. Kevin pacing and threatening lawsuits. Arthur walked calmly back into the conference room. stood at the head of the table, waited until enough of them had filtered back in and sat down. Then he spoke. There is one more section of the trust we have not yet discussed. He opened the folder again. Please. Sit down. They filed back in like survivors pulled from rubble. Slow. Unsteady. Eyes fixed on nothing. Bridget leaned on Patrick's arm. Sean cradled his right hand against his chest, knuckles swelling purple. Megan sat down without her usual posture. Slumped. Deflated. Like the video had drained something essential from her. Kevin stood behind Megan's chair. Arms crossed. Jaw set. Daniel's seat was empty. He had not come back. The front door had closed behind him 20 minutes ago, and no one had tried to stop him. Arthur waited until the room settled. Then he opened the folder to a page marked with a blue tab. Section 3. Subsection 2, he said. Alternate Distribution Authority. Megan's head lifted slightly. Arthur read without pause. In the event that the primary condition is not met, Robert Callahan retains the right, for a period of 7 years from the date of Grace Callahan's death until January 15, 2030, to petition the court for partial or full redistribution of the trust funds to any child or children who demonstrate genuine, sustained, and verifiable change in their relationship with their father. He looked up. Let the words land. Sean spoke first, his voice hoarse. What does that mean? It means, Arthur said, that your father can, at any point in the next 7 years, request that the court redirect some or all of the funds from the charity to one or more of you, but only if he believes the change is real, and only if the court agrees. The room shifted. Something changed in the air. Not hope exactly. Something more fragile than that. Something that could shatter if anyone breathed too hard. Kevin broke it. Of course. He laughed. Short. Bitter. So he holds this over their heads for 7 years. Makes them dance like puppets. Prove they love him enough. This is extortion. I looked at him. This man who had pounded on my front door, who had called me George with contempt in his voice, who had threatened lawsuits and police reports and financial abuse charges. I spoke directly to him for the first and last time. Your mother-in-law holds it. I am just the executor. Kevin's face darkened. He opened his mouth to respond, but Megan put her hand on his arm. Barely a touch. But he stopped. Arthur closed the folder. That concludes the formal reading. You are welcome to stay and discuss among yourselves, or you are free to leave. He gathered his papers and stepped back from the table, giving the room to us. I stood up. The chair scraped softly against the floor. I looked at each of them, at the 7 faces still in the room, at the empty chair where Daniel had been, at Kevin hovering behind Megan, like a shadow she could not shake. I need to say one thing, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried. They all looked at me. Even Kevin. I did not plan this. Your mother did. I did not want this. She knew it was necessary. I spent 2 years hoping she was wrong about you, hoping you would call, visit, show up, just once, without needing something from me first. She watched me hope and she knew. She knew before I did. I paused. Let the silence hold. So here is the only question that matters. Do you want a father, or do you want a trust fund? Because you cannot have both by pretending. Nobody spoke. The clock ticked. Snow fell past the window. Bridget's voice broke first. Small, trembling, but certain. I want a father. She looked at me, her eyes still red and swollen. I want you, Dad. I am sorry it took this to make me say it. Patrick nodded. Slow. Deliberate. Me too. Sean unwrapped his injured hand, looked at the split knuckles, then looked at me. I messed up. I know that. But I am here now, and I am not leaving. 3. Out of 8. 3. Voices. 3. Choices. made in the wreckage of everything else. I looked at Ryan. He stared at the table, said nothing. Looked at Colleen. She shook her head once, barely perceptible, but enough. Looked at Erin. She was already standing, reaching for her coat. Megan. I looked at her last. My eldest. The one who used to rescue stray cats. The one whose voice had been the cruelest on Christmas Eve. She sat perfectly still, her hands in her lap, her face unreadable. The tears were dry. Whatever storm had raged inside her during that video had passed, or been buried. I could not tell which. She did not speak. She just stood, slowly, picked up her purse, buttoned her coat. Kevin put his hand on her back and steered her toward the door. Megan, I said. She stopped, did not turn around. I reached into my inside jacket pocket and pulled out one final envelope. Sealed. Cream paper. Grace's handwriting across the front. To my children. To be opened only when you have each made your choice. I handed it to Arthur. He held it up so everyone could see. Your mother left this as well. To be read together. When the time is right. Megan turned her head. Just enough to see the envelope over her shoulder. Grace's handwriting. That familiar curve. That careful hand that had written their names on lunch bags and birthday cards and love letters tucked into coat pockets. She stared at it for 3 seconds. 4. 5. I counted. Then she turned back to the door. Kevin opened it for her. She walked through. Ryan followed. Then Colleen. Then Erin. 4 of them walking out. Into the hallway. Down the stairs. Out the front door. Into the January. Cold and away from me. The door closed. Bridget was still sitting at the table. Patrick beside her. Sean across from them, cradling his hand. 3 out of 8. Not what I had hoped for. Not what Grace had hoped for either. But real. Present. Choosing to stay, not because of what they might gain, but because of what they had already lost. I looked at them. At these 3 children who had watched their mother speak to them from beyond death and had chosen to stay. Thank you, I said. Bridget cried again. Patrick put his arm around her. Sean just nodded. Arthur set the sealed envelope on the table between us. For when you are ready, he said quietly. I looked at the door Megan had walked through. The hallway was empty now. The building was quiet. She had looked back at the envelope. 5 seconds. I held on to that. The sold sign went up on a Tuesday. Red letters against white snow. I stood at the kitchen window with my coffee and stared at it for a long time. 30 years in this house. 30 years of mornings at this window, watching the seasons change on Oakwood Drive. Spring blossoms on the dogwood out front. Summer evenings with the sprinkler running. Autumn leaves clogging the gutters. Winter snow covering everything like a fresh start that never lasted. The buyer came through Arthur. A young couple. Jake Santos, 28. Newly promoted to Ladder Company 12 in Newark. His wife Maria, 26, 5 months pregnant with their first child. They had been looking for 6 months. Everything in their budget was too small or too far from the station. When Arthur mentioned my house and the price I was asking, they drove out the same afternoon. I met them on a Saturday. Jake was tall, broad-shouldered, kept his hair short the way we all did at the station. He shook my hand at the front door, and I recognized something in his grip, in the way he stood, in the way his eyes swept the room not for flaws but for potential. He reminded me of myself 30 years ago, standing in this same doorway with Grace beside me, her belly round with Megan, both of us imagining the life we would build inside these walls. Maria was quiet, warm. She walked through the room slowly, touching door frames, looking out windows, one hand resting on her stomach. When she saw the backyard, she smiled for the first time. "It is perfect," she said to Jake. He nodded, looked at me. "We will take it." I listed at $520. Sold it to them for $480. Arthur handled the paperwork. The closing was fast. January 28th. I signed my name 12 times. George Robert Callahan. Over and over until the ink felt like muscle memory. After the signing, I asked Jake and Maria to come back to the house one more time. There was something I wanted to show them. We stood together in the kitchen doorway. The room was mostly empty now, boxes stacked in the corners, furniture that would stay, because it fit the house better than it would fit anywhere else. I pointed to the door frame between the kitchen and the hallway. Pencil marks, dozens of them, running up the wood in a crooked column, each one labeled with a name and a date. Megan, age 4, Daniel, age 3, all the way down to Aaron, age 2. 26 years of growth, charted in graphite, on a wooden frame. I did not measure them after they turned 12, I said. They stopped wanting to stand still long enough. Maria stepped forward, touched the marks with her fingertip, traced the highest one. Megan, age 11, 1994. Her eyes were damp. "We will keep this," she said. "I promise." I nodded, cleared my throat. There was a plaque in my coat pocket. Bronze, about the size of a hardcover book, polished, engraved. I had ordered it 2 weeks ago from a shop in Morristown. I pulled it out and held it up so they could see. Grace Callahan House. In memory of a woman who believed every family deserves a place to come home to. Jake took it from me carefully. "Read it." Looked up. "You want this on the house? By the front door?" "If that is all right with you," he nodded. "We would be honored." We walked outside together. Jake held the plaque against the wall beside the front door while Maria found the right height. I watched them, this young couple about to start their family in the house where I had raised mine, where Grace had planted flowers and baked bread and stayed up late helping with homework, where she had died in the bedroom at the end of the hall on a Thursday morning in January while snow fell outside and I held her hand. Jake drilled 2 screws into the brick. The plaque settled into place. Bronze against red. Solid. Permanent. I stood back and looked at it. Grace Callahan House. She would have loved this. Not the honor of it. The purpose. Knowing that the walls she had filled with love would go on sheltering someone else. That the pencil marks on the doorframe would watch another child grow tall. I shook Jake's hand one final time. Hugged Maria carefully. Told them to call if they needed anything. Then, I walked to my car. A single suitcase in the trunk. A cardboard box of things that mattered on the back seat. Grace's jewelry box. 4 photo albums. The plaque Donna at the foundation had given me. The letter from the wedding box. The brochure for Cape May. I got in. Started the engine. Sat there for one moment with my hands on the wheel, looking at the house through the windshield. The Christmas lights were gone now. The windows dark. The sold sign replaced by a new one. Under contract. Soon it would just be a house again. Not mine. Not ours. Just walls and windows and memories that belonged to the past. I pulled out my phone. Opened the group chat. Typed. "The house has been sold. New owners take possession February 1st. It has been named the Grace Callahan House. If you left personal belongings, collect them before January 30th. After that date, anything remaining will be donated." I hit send. Set the phone on the passenger seat. Did not wait for replies. I put the car in reverse. Back down the driveway one final time. Turned south on Oakwood Drive. Past the park where I pushed them on swings. Past the school, where Grace volunteered every Friday. Past the fire station where I spent half my life pulling people from the worst moments of theirs. I did not look back. Not once. The highway opened ahead of me. South. Toward the coast. Toward the ocean. I had never lived beside, but Grace had always dreamed about. Toward the brochure in my coat pocket, and the note she left inside it. "Someday, when you are ready." I was ready. The ocean did not ask questions. It did not want money. It did not send texts at midnight, demanding explanations. It just moved. In and out. Steady and patient. The most honest sound I had heard in years. I arrived in Cape May on the 1st of February. Drove in from the north with my suitcase and my cardboard box and nothing else. The town was quiet in winter. Population 3,500 when the tourists were gone. Clapboard houses painted in soft pastels. A lighthouse at the southern tip. Restaurants closed until April. Bed and breakfasts. With vacancy. Signs that did not need to be there. Because nobody was coming. The cottage was on Beach Avenue. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. A kitchen the size of a closet, and a living room with windows that faced the water. The floors were scuffed hardwood. The walls were white and bare. The furniture came with the rent. A couch that sagged in the middle. A table for 2. A bed that creaked when you sat on it. 800 square feet. Of nothing special. $900 a month. It was perfect. I unpacked in 20 minutes. Hung Grace's photo on the wall above the fireplace. Set her jewelry box on the bedroom dresser. Stacked the photo albums on the bookshelf beside a collection of paperbacks the previous tenant had left behind. Then I made coffee. Carried it to the porch and sat down. The ocean was right there. 50 yards of sand and then endless gray-blue water stretching to the horizon. Gulls circled overhead. The wind was cold but clean. Salt and sand and nothing else. No lawn to mow, no gutters to clean. No furnace to repair. No table to set for people who were not coming. The first 3 weeks passed in a rhythm I did not know I needed. Wake at 6. Coffee on the porch. Walk the beach for an hour. Come back. Read. Make lunch. Walk again in the afternoon. Cook dinner for 1. Read more. Sleep. No phone calls, no texts, no obligations to anyone or anything except the tide. I started volunteering at the Cape May fire station on the 2nd week. Not fighting fires. I was too old for that, and my back would not allow it. But I helped with equipment maintenance. Checked hoses, cleaned trucks, sat in the common room with the younger guys and told stories about the old days at Station 7 in Philadelphia. They called me Cap. I did not correct them. The knock came on a Thursday morning. February 22nd. Just after 9. I was sitting at the kitchen table eating toast when I heard it. 3 solid raps on the front door. Not urgent, not aggressive, just confident. I opened the door. The man standing on my porch was tall and broad-shouldered, with white hair and a trimmed beard. He wore jeans and a black hoodie with faded yellow letters across the chest. Philadelphia Fire Department. Retired. I knew the logo before I read the words. Spent 34 years looking at it in mirrors and locker rooms and the backs of trucks. Bobby Callahan, he said. It was not a question. That is me. He smiled. Broad and warm. Held out his hand. Tommy Gallagher. Ladder Company 3. Retired 2018. Your wife told me you would show up eventually. I shook his hand. His grip was firm. Familiar. The grip of someone who had spent decades holding on to things that mattered. Grace? Told you? She did. Called me in October of 22. Said she was dying. Said you would need a place to land when everything played out. Asked me to keep an eye out for you. I stared at him. Of course she had. Of course Grace had thought of this too. Had mapped out not just the test and the trust and the videos, but also the landing. The place I would go after the smoke cleared. The person who would be there when I arrived. You have a few minutes? Tommy asked. There is something I want to show you. We walked. Tommy led the way down a narrow street that ran parallel to the beach. Past other cottages. Past a closed seafood restaurant. Past a bait shop with a cat sleeping in the window. We stopped at a low building with blue siding and a sign out front. Cape May First Responders Community Center. Inside, it smelled like coffee and old wood. A dozen people sat around tables talking. Men and women, middle-aged and older. Department logos on their shirts and jackets. Fire, police, EMS. Some I recognized. Not personally, but the way they held themselves. The way they laughed. The way their eyes tracked the exits without thinking about it. I knew these people. They were my people. Tommy poured 2 coffees and led me to a corner table. We sat. Grace called me because we served together back in '89, he said. Short stint. Wildfire deployment out west. She remembered me from the family barbecue after. Said I was the only one of your buddies who actually talked to her instead of just nodding and going back to the grill. I almost smiled. That sounds like something she would remember. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a cream-colored envelope, sealed. Grace's handwriting on the front. For Bobby. To be opened when you are ready to start again. I took it. Felt the weight. Heavier than a single letter. I opened it carefully. Inside. 2 pages of Grace's handwriting. And a certified check. $30,000. Drawn from an account I did not know existed. Dated November 2022. I unfolded the letter. Read it there at the table, while Tommy sat quietly and drank his coffee. My dearest Bobby, if you are reading this, it means you made it. You pulled the alarm, you followed through, and now you are free. Free from waiting for people who were not coming. Free from paying for love that should have been given freely. Free from a house that became a prison. I am so proud of you. This money is yours. Not for the children. Not for obligations. For you. Use it for something that makes you happy. Or save it. Or give it away to someone who needs it more. Whatever you choose, choose it for yourself. You have earned that right. One more thing. Do you remember Maria Thompson? The nurse who cared for me those last months. Her son David is 14 now. Bright kid. Wants to be an engineer. I left a small fund for his education through Arthur. If you feel moved to add to it, I would not object. That boy deserves a chance. I love you, Bobby. Always have. Always will. Live well. You have earned it. Yours forever. Grace. I folded the letter. Held it against my chest. The coffee had gone cold. Tommy was looking out the window, giving me space. Thank you, I said. My voice came out rough. He nodded. No need to thank me. Grace asked. I showed up. That is what we do. We sat there for a while. Then Tommy took me on a walk down to the lighthouse. We stood at the point, looking out at the water, gray and endless and patient. I thought about Grace, about the test, about the children who had failed it, about the 3 who stayed, about Megan's 5 seconds looking back at the envelope, about the house that was no longer mine, about the life that was. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. No return address, just my name. In careful shaking handwriting, I recognized immediately. Bridget. The letter was short. 1 page. Blue ink on lined paper torn from a notebook. No preamble. No excuses. Dressed up as explanations. Just 5 sentences that landed like someone laying down a weapon. Dad. I am sorry. I have no excuse. I was afraid and I was wrong. Can I come see you? I read it 3 times standing at the mailbox in the March wind. Then I went inside. Sat at my kitchen table. Wrote back on a plain note card. Yes. Come whenever you are ready. Mailed it the next morning. Bridget arrived on a Saturday in the middle of March. She drove 3 hours from Montclair. I saw her car pull up from the porch. A blue Honda with a dent in the rear bumper. She sat inside for a full minute before she got out. I did not go to her, did not wave from the porch. Just waited. She walked up the path slowly. Her coat was too thin for the coastal wind. Her hair was different, shorter. She looked thinner than I remembered, tired in a way that sleep could not fix. When she reached the porch steps, she stopped, looked up at me. Her eyes were already wet. "Hi, Dad." "Hi, sweetheart. Come in." We went to the Seaview Cafe. 6 tables, wide windows facing the harbor. I ordered coffee. She ordered tea and did not drink it. For the first 5 minutes, neither of us spoke. She held her cup with both hands and stared at the surface like the right words might float up from the bottom. "I do not know how to start," she said finally. "Then do not. Just sit." She looked at me, tears running. Not dramatic, just steady, quiet. The way rain falls when it has no intention of stopping. "Mom was right," she said. "About everything. I watched you disappear, and I did nothing. I told myself it was not my problem, that you were fine, that Megan knew what she was doing. But I knew. I knew it was wrong and I said nothing." I nodded. "You did not." She flinched, but she did not look away. "I deserved that. I appreciate you being here," I said. "That is a start." We stayed for 2 hours. Talked about small things. Her job, her kids, the weather. She did not ask about the money, did not mention the trust or the accounts. When she left, she hugged me at the door. I let her, but I did not hug back. Not yet. That would come later, when it was earned. Sean came in May. No letter first, no warning. Just his truck pulling into my driveway on a Friday evening at 6, with a bottle of Jameson on the passenger seat, and a look on his face like a man walking into confession. He knocked. I opened the door. He held up the whiskey. "You drink?" "Not usually. Tonight you do." We sat on the porch. 2 old lawn chairs I had bought at a thrift store the week before. The ocean was calm. Sunset turning the water gold and pink. Sean poured 2 glasses neat. We drank. He did not speak for the first 20 minutes. Just sat there watching the waves. Then he started. No preamble. Straight in. "I was a coward," he said. "I followed Megan because it was easier. She said you were guilt-tripping us, and I believed her because believing her meant I did not have to feel bad about not showing up. It was convenient. And I hate myself for it." I took a sip. The whiskey burned. Good burn. Clean. "I was not a bad kid," he continued. "Was I? I mean, when I was young. I was not terrible. No. You were not terrible." He turned to look at me. His eyes were red. Not from the whiskey. "What happened to me, Dad?" I looked at him. At this 37-year-old man who still had the jaw of the boy who used to help me wash the truck at Station 7. "I do not know," I said honestly. "But you are here now." He nodded. Swallowed hard. Poured himself another glass. We sat for 4 hours. Talked about everything except money. His job. His failed relationships. The time he almost applied to the fire academy, but talked himself out of it. The night Grace died. And how he had sat in his car in our driveway for 20 minutes before coming inside, because he did not know how to face me without her there as a buffer. When he left, he shook my hand. Firm. Like his father taught him. "I will come back next month," he said. I nodded. Okay, he did. Patrick came in July. He did not come alone. He brought his son, Liam, 3 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, a grin that stopped my heart because it was Grace's grin. The exact same one, crooked on the left side, full of mischief and joy, and the absolute certainty that the world was a good place. They pulled up on a Saturday morning at 10. Patrick got out first, walked around to the other side, opened the back door, unbuckled the car seat. Liam jumped out and stood on the gravel driveway looking around with enormous eyes. The ocean was visible from where he stood. He pointed at it. "What is that?" Patrick crouched beside him. "That is the ocean, buddy. It is big. Yeah, it is. Liam looked up at me, standing on the porch, 62 years old, worn out and rebuilt, and standing in a place I never expected to be. He studied me with the intense concentration only small children possess. Then he grinned. Grace's grin. Grandpa Bobby? Patrick must have coached him, must have shown him photos, told him stories, prepared him for this moment. But it did not feel rehearsed. It felt like a 3-year-old recognizing something essential, something that required no explanation. Yeah, buddy, I am Grandpa Bobby. He ran. 3-year-olds do not walk anywhere. They run. He ran up the porch steps and threw his arms around my legs, small hands gripping the fabric of my pants, blonde head pressed against my knee. I looked down at him, at this tiny person who did not know about trust funds or frozen accounts or video messages from dead grandmothers, who just knew that the man on the porch was his grandfather, and that was enough. I crouched down. My knees screamed, my eyes burned, and for the first time since Grace died, I cried. Not silent tears, not the dignified grief of a man who had learned to keep it together. Real crying, the kind that shakes your whole body and makes sounds you cannot control. Patrick stood at the bottom of the steps, watching, his own eyes wet. He did not say anything. Just let me have it. 4 months later, October, a Thursday evening. I was on the porch watching the sunset when my phone rang. I picked it up without checking the screen. Habit now. Bridget called Sundays. Sean called Wednesdays. Patrick sent photos of Liam almost daily, but it was not any of them. Caller ID. Megan. I stared at the screen for 4 rings. Almost let it go to voicemail. Almost set the phone back on the arm of the chair and watched the sunset without whatever this was going to be. But something stopped me. Maybe Grace's voice in my head. Maybe the memory of those 5 seconds at the lawyer's office when Megan had looked back at the envelope. Maybe just the fact that after 42 years of being her father, I could not bring myself to ignore a call from my firstborn. Not even now. I answered. Said nothing. Waited. For 10 seconds there was only breathing on the other end. Shaky. Uneven. The kind of breathing that comes before you say something that terrifies you. Then a sound. Not a word. A sob. Small and broken and so unlike any sound I had ever heard Megan make that I almost checked the caller ID again. Dad. Her voice cracked on the single syllable. Splintered like wood under too much weight. I am here. Another sob. Longer this time. Then silence. Then her voice again. Barely a whisper. I watched Mom's video 47 times. I closed my eyes. Leaned back in the chair. Let the ocean fill the silence between us. 47 times, she repeated. Every night for the first 2 weeks. Then every other night. Then once a week. And every single time. Every time, Dad. She looked at me. Right at me. And I could not pretend I did not hear her. I did not respond. Just listened. Can I come see you? Her voice was so small. So unlike Megan. The Megan I knew took up every room she entered. Commanded. Directed. Demanded. This voice belonged to someone stripped of all of that. Someone standing in the wreckage of who they used to be and not knowing how to rebuild. Yes, I said. You can. She came the following Thursday. I told her I would be at the lighthouse at 2 in the afternoon. Not the cottage. Not yet. The lighthouse was neutral ground, public, open, a place where neither of us had to pretend we were comfortable. I got there early. Stood at the base of the tower looking out at the water. The October wind was sharp. Cold enough for a heavy coat, but not yet winter cold. The sky was gray. The ocean matched it. Everything the same shade of uncertainty. Her car pulled into the lot at 1:55. A white sedan. Not the Mercedes she used to drive. Something smaller. Cheaper. She got out and stood there for a moment, one hand on the car door, looking at me across the gravel. She was thinner. Her hair was different, pulled back in a simple ponytail, instead of the styled blowout she used to spend $200 on every 3 weeks. No makeup, no jewelry except a plain silver watch. She looked like someone who had stopped performing. She walked toward me, slowly, hands in her coat pockets. When she was close enough that I could see her eyes clearly, I noticed they were red. Not fresh tears, the kind of red that comes from weeks of crying, from nights spent awake with a laptop screen glowing, and your dead mother's voice on repeat. She stopped 3 feet from me. We stood there facing each other with the lighthouse behind me and the ocean behind her and 30 years of history between us. "You came alone," I said. She nodded. "Kevin and I are divorced. 3 months now." She said it flat, matter of fact, like reporting the weather. I did not ask why. Did not need to. Kevin had been poison. A man who saw my daughter as a conduit to my money and my daughter as a weapon to use against me. Without the accounts, without the trust, without the leverage, there was nothing left to hold them together. We walked, side by side along the path that followed the cliff edge. The wind pushed against us. Gulls screamed overhead. Neither of us spoke for the first 10 minutes. Then she stopped, turned to face the water, and began to talk. "Mom said she counted the days," Megan said. Her voice was quiet, but steady, controlled in a way that told me she had rehearsed this. 847 days between calls that were not about money. She said she remembered the exact date I stopped calling you just to talk. March 15th, 2023. She remembered. "Dad," I nodded. Grace remembered everything. She said I became my anger. Megan's voice cracked again, but she kept going. She said she watched me turn into someone she did not recognize. That I used to be a little girl who rescued stray cats from the rain, who cried when the neighbor's dog got hit by a car, who made you carry spiders outside instead of killing them because every life matters, Mommy. She stopped, pressed her hand over her mouth. Her shoulders shook once, twice. Then, she steadied herself, continued. She said she did not know when I decided you were just an ATM with a heartbeat. But she watched it happen, and it broke her heart. Megan's face crumpled. Not the controlled, calculated expressions I was used to from her. Real crumbling, the kind you cannot fake. "And then," she said. Megan looked at me, tears streaming. She said she still loved me, even after everything. She said she would always love me. But love does not mean letting someone destroy the people you love. And that is what I was doing. Destroying you, by ignoring you, by making you feel invisible. We stood there. The wind howled. The ocean crashed. My eldest daughter stood before me, stripped of every armor she had ever worn. No Kevin behind her. No siblings to perform for. No anger to hide behind. Just Megan, 42 years old, alone, broken open by a dead woman's voice playing on repeat for 10 months. "I do not deserve forgiveness," she said. She was looking at the ground now, her shoulders curved inward. Small. "I do not deserve to be here. After what I said to you on Christmas Eve, after what I did, after years of taking and never giving back, I do not deserve any of this." I looked at her, at this woman who had once been the tiny, fierce girl who chased stray cats through the rain and carried them home wrapped in her jacket, who called me her hero, who made me promise to keep the monsters away. "You are right," I said. "You do not deserve forgiveness. Not today." She flinched, but she did not leave. "You earn it," I said. "Starting now. Not with words. Not with apologies. With time. With showing up. With calling just to ask how I am. With being present when it is inconvenient. With choosing me over whatever is easier." She nodded, tears falling. Wind catching them. "Can I try?" "Yes. You can try." She exhaled. long and shaky, like someone setting down something they had been carrying for a very long time. We walked back to the parking lot in silence. At her car, she turned, looked at me, opened her mouth, closed it, then just nodded once, got in, drove away. I stood there watching until her car disappeared around the bend. Then I turned back to the lighthouse, to the ocean, to the wind. She had come back. Not for money, not for the trust, not because Kevin told her to. She came back because Grace's voice had followed her for 10 months, and she could not outrun it anymore. I did not know if she would stay, did not know if the change was real or temporary. But she had come. She had said the words. She had stood there without armor and let me see her. And for the first time in my life, I saw my eldest daughter not as an enemy, not as a disappointment, but as someone trying to find her way home. 5 plates. Last year I set 8, and not one was used. This year, 5 was more than enough. The cottage kitchen was small, barely room for one person to move between the stove and the counter without bumping something. But I had learned to work within the space, learned where to stack the cutting boards, where to hang the ladle, how to angle the pot so the lid did not hit the cabinet when I lifted it. Irish stew. Grace's recipe. Not the elaborate spread I had attempted last Christmas. No shepherd's pie or glazed ham or soda bread from scratch. Just one big pot of stew. Lamb, potatoes, carrots, onions, fresh thyme, a generous pour of Guinness. Simple, warm, the kind of meal that filled a house with the smell of home and did not require 8 hours of preparation. I set the table at 4. 5 plates, 5 glasses, 5 forks, 5 napkins. The good plates this time, not the white porcelain from Ridgewood. Those belonged to Jake and Maria now. These were new, blue ceramic I had bought at a shop on Washington Street in October. Grace would have liked them. She always preferred color over white. The cottage was decorated. Not much. A small tree in the corner with lights and a single star on top. Garland along the window frame. A candle on the table that smelled like pine. Nothing elaborate. Just enough to make it feel like Christmas. At 5:45, the first car pulled up. I heard the tires on gravel before I saw the headlights. Bridget. She came through the door carrying an apple pie wrapped in foil, her cheeks red from the cold. Her smile shy but real. Hi, Dad. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Come in. She set the pie on the counter, pulled off her coat, looked around the cottage with the same expression she had worn on her first visit. Taking it in, this small space that was nothing like the house she grew up in, but somehow felt more alive. Sean arrived at 5:52, stomping snow off his boots on the porch. He carried a bottle of wine. Red. He held it up when he came through the door. Pinot Noir. I remembered Mom used to like it. My chest tightened. She did. Patrick and Liam pulled up at 5:58. I heard Liam before I saw him, his voice carrying through the cold air. Grandpa Bobby! Grandpa Bobby! Are we late? Patrick unbuckled him from the car seat and set him down. Liam ran. Up the path. Up the steps. Through the door. Straight to me. Arms around my legs. Face pressed against my knee, the exact same way he had done it in July. Like no time had passed. Like this was simply what he did now. Fine, Grandpa. Hold on. I lifted him up. Felt his weight. His warmth. His small hands gripping my collar. Hey, buddy. You are right on time. He grinned. Grace's grin. I am really hungry. Patrick came in behind him, smiled at me. Clapped my shoulder. Smells amazing, Dad. And then 6:03. The last car. I saw the headlights sweep across the living room wall. Heard the engine cut. A car door open and close. Footsteps on the gravel path. Slow. Hesitant. Megan appeared at the door. She wore a simple coat. No designer label. Her hair was down. No makeup. She stood in the doorway, holding something against her chest. Her hands were shaking. "Hi, Dad," she said. Her voice was quiet, careful, like someone entering a room they were not sure they were welcome in. "Hi, Megan, come in." She stepped inside. Bridget looked up from the counter. Sean turned from the window. Patrick set Liam down. The room went still for a moment. 4 siblings, looking at their eldest sister, the one who had led the charge away from me, the one who had sent the cruelest text, the one who had walked out of the lawyer's office without looking back. And here she was, standing in my kitchen, with shaking hands on Christmas Eve. Bridget moved first, crossed the room and hugged her. No words, just held on. Megan's shoulders shook once. Then she steadied herself, hugged back. We sat down at 6:15. 5 plates, 5 glasses, stew ladled into bowls, bread torn from a loaf I had bought at the bakery on the corner. Liam sat on a stack of books in his chair, his chin barely clearing the table. He ate with both hands. Nobody minded. The conversation was quiet at first. Careful. Like people testing ice they were not sure would hold. But it thawed. Sean told a story about a customer at the bar who tried to pay with a handful of marbles. Liam announced that he wanted a boat. Bridget asked about the lighthouse and whether she could walk there tomorrow. Patrick said the stew was better than last time, and I told him there was no last time because this was the first stew I had ever made in this cottage. Halfway through the meal, Bridget set down her spoon. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Are you going to petition the court? For the trust?" The table went quiet. Sean looked at me. Patrick stopped chewing. Megan stared at her bowl. "No." Bridget blinked. "No? No. The money stays with the widow's fund. Your mother wanted it there. And she was right. Those families need it more than any of us." Sean leaned back. "You are sure?" "I am sure." Nobody argued. Nobody protested. Nobody asked what about us, or what about our share. They just nodded, accepted it, because they were not here for the money. They were here for the stew, for the table. For me. Megan reached into her coat pocket, pulled out something small. A photograph. Old. Creased at the corners. Faded with time. She held it for a moment, then slid it across the table toward me. I picked it up. Grace. Young. Maybe 28. Holding a baby in the doorway of the Ridgewood house. The dogwood blooming in the front yard. Grace was smiling down at the bundle in her arms. The baby was Megan. 3 weeks old. "I found it in a box in my old apartment," Megan said. Her voice was steady but thin. "When I was packing after the divorce, I thought you should have it." I looked at the photo. At Grace's young face. At Megan, tiny and new and wrapped in a yellow blanket. At the house that was now someone else's house. At a moment frozen in time when everything was beginning and nothing had yet gone wrong. "Thank you," I said. My voice was rough. After dinner we moved to the porch. All of us. Liam bundled in Patrick's jacket. The ocean was dark. The stars were out. Cold and bright. The sound of the waves was steady beneath us. Constant. We stood together in a loose line. 5 people looking out at the water. Not speaking. Not needing to. Just being there. Present. Together. The way it should have been. All along. 4 children stood beside me in the cold. 4 others existed somewhere I could not reach. And I had made peace with both. They left one by one. Hugs at the door. Promises to call. And this time, I believed them. Bridget held on for a long moment. Whispered, "Merry Christmas." Dad against my shoulder. Sean shook my hand firm and level, then pulled me in for a hug he pretended was casual but was not. Patrick lifted Liam up so the boy could kiss my cheek. "Bye, Grandpa Bobby," See you next week. Megan was last. She stood at the door with her hands in her coat pockets. Thank you, she said, for letting me come back. Drive safe. She turned, walked down the steps, then stopped. Dad, I love you. Not because I need something, just because it is true. I looked at her. My firstborn, standing in the cold, with nothing left to hide behind. I love you too, Megan. She nodded, got in her car, drove away. I stood on the porch until all 4 sets of taillights disappeared down Beach Avenue, until the only sound was the ocean and the wind and my own breathing. Then I went inside. 5 plates in the sink, 5 glasses on the counter, a napkin on the floor where Liam had dropped it. The candle burned down to a stub, still flickering. I washed the dishes slowly, 1 plate at a time. Warm water, steam rising. Outside the kitchen window, the lighthouse beam swept across the dark water. Steady, patient, guiding people home. I dried the last plate, set it in the cabinet, made 1 more cup of coffee, carried it to the porch, sat down in my chair, the one that had shaped itself to fit me over the past 10 months. My chair, my porch, my ocean. 1 year. That is how long it had been since the empty table, since the 8 plates no one touched, since the text that cracked something open inside me, and the morning I pulled the final alarm. Grace knew. She always knew. Before the diagnosis, before the hospital, before the videos, and the trust and the envelopes sealed with her careful hand. She saw what was coming, and she built the only thing that could save me. Not a weapon. A mirror. She held it up to our children and said, "Look at what you are doing to the man who gave you everything." Some of them looked. 4 of them did. They saw themselves and did not like what they found. And they came back. Not for money. Not because a deadline forced their hand. They came back because Grace's voice followed them into the dark and would not let them rest until they did something about it. 4 came back. 4 did not. Daniel, Ryan, Colleen, Aaron. I do not know where they are. Do not know if they kept the USB drives or threw them away. They made their choice, the same way I made mine. In firefighting, when a firefighter dies in the line of duty or retires after a full career, we sound the final alarm. 3 sets of 5 bells. 15 rings. It is not a warning. It is an honor, a recognition that someone gave everything they had. Every shift, every ladder, every burning room they entered, when the smart thing would have been to stay outside. Grace earned her final alarm. She gave everything, and when she knew her time was ending, she spent her final weeks building one last structure, a plan to save the man she loved from being buried alive under the weight of people who had stopped seeing him. That is what love looks like when it has no vanity left. Grace did not do this for revenge. She did this because she loved me enough to force a reckoning I would never have forced on my own, loved me enough to say what I could not say to myself. You matter. Your time matters. And anyone who cannot see that does not deserve access to it. Boundaries are not walls. I learned that this year. They are not weapons built from anger. They are foundations. The thing you pour before you build anything worth standing in. Without them, everything collapses. No matter how much love you put into it, no matter how many years you spend maintaining it. I spent 40 years being a father without boundaries. Gave everything, asked nothing. And when the giving stopped, so did the relationship. Because there was no foundation, just habit, just a monthly deposit that made them feel connected without being present. Grace saw that, and she refused to let it be my ending. I lost 4 children this year. Not to death, to choice, their choice. And I have made peace with that. Because peace is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of acceptance. The understanding that you did everything you could and the rest was never yours to control. But I found 4 who came back. Who drove hours and wrote letters and showed up with whiskey and apple pie and a 3-year-old who calls me Grandpa Bobby. 4 is not 8, but 4 is real. 4 is honest. 4 is enough. And I found myself somewhere between the empty table and the full one, between the final alarm and the second chance, between Grace's last letter and Liam's first hug. Not a service, not an ATM, not a duty, just a father, worthy of being chosen. If this story reached you tonight, if you recognized yourself in any of these words, whether you are the father sitting alone or the child who stopped calling, do not wait. Do not let another Christmas pass with empty chairs. Do not let pride or convenience be the reason someone you love sits in the dark wondering if they matter. Pick up the phone. Drive the 3 hours. Show up when it is hard. Because boundaries can save a family, but they cannot bring back the time you wasted pretending everything was fine. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a thought below if this made you feel something. And if you want to hear what comes next, stay close. There is always more to tell. The ocean rolled. The stars burned. The lighthouse swept its beam across the water. And in a small cottage on Beach Avenue, a retired firefighter sat on his porch, coffee in his hands, peace in his chest, grace in his heart. That was enough. That was everything.